Well, her home was bombed in Birmingham, Alabama, in the heat of the civil rights struggle. Her best-selling books include Sons of Thunder, The King Family Legacy, and I Don't Want Your Man, I Want My Own. She's currently minister of the Gospel of Jesus Christ, serving as director of the African American Outreach for Gospel of Life, headed up by Father Frank Pavallone, Priest for Life. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She is the daughter of the late slain civil rights activist Reverend A.D. King, the brother of MLK. She's a niece of Dr. Martin Luther King. Please welcome back to the program Dr. Alveda King.
I'm good to be back.
Nice to have you back, Alveda. Alveda, so nice to have you back.
It's so good to be back. I'm glad to join you. Wow, I heard this quote by my uncle, and I know that a lot of people wanted to misunderstand it and say he promoted violence, but you have just shown the world that that's not true.
And you know, Alveda, what I hear is he evolved on the issue of violence, later on realized it was an effective tool. To that, I say BS. I want to know what you thought of that.
It's just not true. Martin Luther King Jr. has been nonviolent his whole life. As a matter of fact, out of his 3 siblings, he was the one most likely, when anything else was happening in the community, he would be the one to always remind them that the best way to handle that was violence.
Now, Alveda, I've never asked you this, and if you don't want to respond to it, I've got no problem. We can move on. But was there friction between your uncle and Jesse Jackson?
There was friction. A lot of people do know it. Most people didn't. However, Jesse was more black power, and Martin Luther King was nonviolence, and so they did have discussions of that sort. Jesse probably a little younger than Martin, of course, Uncle ML, but my uncle, Martin Luther King Jr., was promoting violence, not only as a method, because remember, he was a Baptist preacher.
Right.
And because he was a Baptist preacher and he followed Jesus Christ, some of that came from that as well.
My guest is Dr. Alveda King. She is the, of course, niece of Dr. Martin Luther King. Alveda, most people, I don't think, realize that your uncle was almost killed earlier. I recall at a book signing, he was stabbed by a black woman.
That was in New York. He had gone to New York to speak at a evangelistic outreach with Billy Graham. Evangelist Billy Graham said, I'm not going to do any more segregated meetings. I'm going to ask this man, Martin Luther King, to come and speak with me. Martin Luther King Jr. was there. They spoke together in Times Square. And so he was stabbed by a lady who was kind of, I guess today, she would have been a street rioter.
Right.
That's what this was.
And what I read, Alveda, is that your uncle laid so still, had he moved a millimeter either way, that knife would have gone into his heart and he would have died.
We believe it was the hand of God that guided him to be still because he had so much more to say and do before he finally did leave the earth. And, you know, my dad was killed the next year, his brother, Alfred Daniel Williams King. They were ML and AD, the Sons of Thunder.
Right.
They worked together in the civil rights movement, and they were Baptist preachers. And then they gave their lives, like the Kennedy brothers, I guess.
I was going to say, Alveda, people talk about the Kennedy brothers and the sacrifice of the Kennedy family. What about your family? And MLK's mother, if I'm not mistaken, was also killed in a church by a black man.
She was playing the Lord's Prayer on a Sunday, and another, I guess, angry protester, you would call it, came into the church and shot my grandmother. And she lost her life in that manner. So we've had to do a lot of forgiving in our family. Part of the King family legacy, faith, hope, and love, the love of God and forgiveness. However, we're also kind of like Frederick Douglass. Douglass said he prayed, and then he got up on his knees, and he got up and used his legs, you see. So you have to have faith, but you have to have action, corresponding action.
Alveda, your politics seem to be very different than the politics of other members of your family. Has that caused you problems?
No problems in the family. We love each other, and we have principles of nonviolent conflict resolution where we talk and we listen to each other. It doesn't mean that we always change our opinion. We usually don't in the political realm, but it does not cause problems. We love each other.
My guest is Alveda King, Dr. Alveda King. She is a niece of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the daughter of Reverend A.D. King. What did you think of Joe Biden's assertion, Alveda, that George Floyd's death had more impact on the world than the death of MLK?
What is not as impactful, their deaths are not as impactful as their legacy and their message. And both men were raised by godly families. And so George Floyd's death at this time with social media and everything probably got, by numbers, sheer numbers, more attention. But Martin Luther King Jr. has been gone for many, many years, and people are still quoting his words because they are founded in gospel. Not social gospel, but the gospel of Jesus Christ. So the real deal is this. Think about this, Larry. Okay, Jesus hung on the cross between two felons. Mm-hmm. One of the felons said, "Remember me." Jesus said, "You'll be with me in paradise." Jesus was killed by law enforcement. And then he said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Mm-hmm. So George Floyd's family today, I was talking to his sister, Judy, and she was talking about love and forgiveness. I did not know that she lost her brother, but two of her sons had been shot to death by police officers. Mm-hmm. So I said, wow, and yet you forgive. And her basic answer was, and we were talking to Jackie Robinson's daughter as well, and they all said, this is our legacy. The three of us, our legacy, we understand that you have to love, you have to forgive, but you have to come back against this evil.
Dr. King, let's take a break here, and when we come back, I want to ask you what your uncle would think about the protests and the riots that have taken place in the last several days.